Welcome to Building Balance, the podcast that helps young professional men take control of their lives through balancing self improvement, career mastery, relationships, and financial success. Each month, we bring you powerful insights, expert interviews, and real world strategies to help you elevate every aspect of your life without burnout. Today, I have the privilege of welcoming an old friend and a senior from my school days at the City School Multan, Umar Farooq. Umar is a Pakistani Australian entrepreneur, fitness freak, and a car lover. But more importantly, he's the founder of Burk Fuel, one of Australia's largest fuel distribution companies operating across Western Australia and Victoria. From working as a mechanical engineer to becoming Young Australian Entrepreneur of the Year 2024, Umar's story is one with grit, vision, and relentless hard work. If you're a young Pakistani or anyone struggling to break out from typical career paths to becoming an entrepreneur, this episode is for you. We're going to talk about his journey, the turning points that changed his life, how he built a multi-million-dollar company, and his advice for young immigrants who want to achieve more. Plus, some fun discussions about his love for fitness and high-performance cars. Let's get started. Umar, welcome to the show.
Uh, Thank you. So yeah, that was a good introduction that you gave. Yeah, anything, mate. Anything
Thank you
that
so much.
you have any questions or anything that you are keen on, go for it.
I have a full thing planned, so don't worry about that. Okay, before we dive into your journey, let's down a bit. What was life like growing up in Pakistan? And how do you
So
remember our time at the city school?
I think the city school was probably, you could call it like one of the best times you've had because you're at that young age where you're not really stressed about anything, really just hanging around with your friends and then all those activities that we used to do, a lot of activities that we used to do, if you guys remember.
Um,
And then like a lot of the stuff that was like even sports related or dramas or debates or whatever we did, like those are the best memories that anyone could actually have, like wake up and no stress or nothing at all. Yeah, like when you compare that, obviously that's like one of your golden days.
and were you a good student?
I don't I was that good of a student. I think it was a mix and a match kind of thing. I mean, end of the day, like you do learn a lot during those years. But when you're talking about like as a good student, I think I would say I was an average student. I was not like like not one of those top threes, never. Yeah, but an average student, you could say.
Typical for every successful man I've ever met. So mostly that's the typical answer. I don't remember much so because it's been 16, I think 16, 17 years.
I think yeah, about 16, 17 years ago. Yeah.
Beautiful times, golden days, as you said. Let's talk about in general. How was your childhood like in Pakistan? And were you always ambitious, or did that develop later?
So when I think all the ambition and those kind of things come into play after you've pretty much passing out from school, that's when you start to look at the world from a different perspective. But I think because when you're finishing your A levels or O levels and then getting into uni, that is where you're just in that race where you just want to get over with it and then get and step into the real world. I think that's one of the things where, like that ambition that you're talking about, that pretty much steps in when you are in that role where, like, that time period where when you're doing your internship or when you're getting to know more people of your industry and then you're getting like taking a step into the real world. That's where the ambition starts to grow. And then when you see a lot of people, like for example, for me, most of this started when I was actually working as an engineer. You get to meet a lot of people, you get to meet clients, get to meet customers, and then you get to know like a lot of the people who are in the process or who are doing things, and then you talk to yourself about maybe I could do it better. You know, so that's where the ambition starts, and then when you see that happening, and that is when you start trusting your own abilities. That's where like the ambition keeps on growing. Then once you're in it, then obviously you open with one, let's say in my instance, you open with one station and then you go on, okay, I want to do more. I want to
Yeah.
explore this. And it's more about exploring more options and exploring more opportunities while you're in that role. So for me, if you were to say in school, I don't think I never thought about getting into fuel, for instance, when I was in school. But obviously, when you're in school, things that you're thinking about are more like, "I'll get that car. I want to get this jet." Those are your ambitions.
Mhm.
But then those ambitions or these goals and stuff kind of guide you through into what your industry you're gonna go in
Yeah.
or where you're gonna excel.
You have dreams at that
Yeah.
stage, but the clear direction of your career, right? At that
Correct.
stage, right? Okay. So what motivated your move to Australia, and what were your initial thoughts and struggles when you arrived?
So when I finished, I came to Australia when I was very young. I was about I was 18 and I was turning 19 when I moved to Australia, and that was way before. That was right after A levels. So that was when it happened. The whole idea was like none of my family or no one was actually in Australia. Just a few people that my dad knew were in Australia, and then they just spoke about Australia. They never knew I was going to end up in Australia at that time. Like in after A levels, gave those tests. Remember those tests that you used to do, those entry tests for unis?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. GMAT and all.
Yeah, I did give SATs and stuff, but they were no use to coming to Australia. But I still gave them, and then like everyone of our age at the time was doing, like giving entry tests and then those SATs, GMATs, and all those things. I was doing the exact same thing. But then Australia, one of the family friend actually was talking to my dad about it, and then I was in that conversation, and then that night just started applying to different universities in Australia. So I got accepted into one, where I pursued, and then got into it, brought it up to my dad, spoke to him about it, and then kind of convinced him. It took 2 days of convincing, but eventually happened. And then, I did most of that myself, the university applications and all those things myself. Then after that, to be honest, like, the funny part was at that time, I didn't even know that you had to get a visa as well. I thought like you've just done the application and you're done, and then that's it. And my dad actually asked me, he's like, "Wait, hold up. What about your visa?" And that was when I was like, "Oh, okay."
Do
So
I
I
need one?
started doing some research, and then found some agents. One of the agent I found went to him, and then got my visa done. And then it took about, I think, from the date I applied, it took about a month for it to come. At that time, it wasn't that hard. But now these days, like I've got a lot of my staff members who've come from Pakistan, and they told me like it took them about like 6 months or something for their visa to get processed.
Yeah, it's harder than ever now.
Yeah. But back then, I'm talking 2011, it wasn't that hard. Like it was hard in the sense like you had to know, you needed to know exactly what you were doing. But then once you got in, it was like the processing times are not that long.
Yeah.
And after a month, I got it through, and I think 3 days after, it was my flight.
And when you landed initially, my brother always talks about this as well. He's in Melbourne. He, like many people like him, when they land in a new country, don't know anybody. I don't know about your case, if you knew anybody before, but how was that phase like? Like
Yes.
any
So yeah, I'll give you. Yeah. So I'll give you the whole run through. Yeah. So I landed at about like 3 a.m. So that was that was one of those flights that I used to land at 3 a.m. So landed at 3 a.m. The good thing I did was, because I did all of those applications myself. There was a service that they used to give at the time where you could get like a chauffeur kind of thing. So in my head, I was thinking, okay, it's a chauffeur service, so probably something good. Right. But when I landed, it was like there was a guy who came in to pick me up, and then he took me from the airport straight to uni, because I was living on campus for the first 6 months. I lived on campus. So he took me to the uni campus facility and took me there, dropped me, and then left. And then I walked in, went to the reception. I was allocated into one of the hostels. Like it was more like a hostel. Took me there, and then normally how it used to work over there was they used to let the people in your unit know that you've got a new guy coming in, or new people coming in. What went in? There was 6 people used to live in one unit over there. Okay. They were because all of them were Australians, and like the way they do it is in a very different way of how we do it in Pakistan and stuff. So they had a drinking night plan, but then I don't drink, so I went in there, and then they had all of that plan. The flight was about 12 hours. It was a 12-hour flight from Dubai to Pakistan. To Perth, and then walked in, was hungry. They had cooked, but it was like boiled rice, and like you're not really used to.
Mm.
And yeah, that was, I went McDonald's straight away, and then started setting everything up. And yeah, it was like the first, I think, first 6 to 7 days. It was just too bad. I was homesick, didn't know anyone,
Mm.
and just trying to mingle around and just uni and back home, uni and back home. And
Mm.
then, yeah, that was, but then after like a while, like when you've spent a month and so, you get to know everything, you know your ways around, and you start
Nice.
applying for jobs and everything. And that was when, like, I did apply for jobs as well. At the time, they were like, because even in Pakistan during my A-levels, I started going to the gym a lot, and I applied for a fitness trainer job in my uni's gym.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was I got that job, and then while I was doing that job, I found a guy who was doing security. He was a bouncer. He used to come to the gym, and spoke to him about like these job scenario and stuff. And then he told me about getting a security guard license. Got that through, and then started working as a bouncer for two of the nightclubs that
Okay.
they've shut down now. But yeah, worked for them for about a year and a half.
So, and you were at that time you were studying your master's, right?
No, I came into for my bachelor's. So straight
Okay.
after A levels. So I finished A levels in Pakistan, and then I came here for my graduation
Okay.
for like bachelor's and stuff.
And with all of the studies, how did you manage work and studies at the same time? And I'm
So
I'm assuming you did these jobs simultaneously.
yes,
So
so basically what you do is you've got a set timetable. So most of the guys like Pakistanis or even Indians and stuff, when they come to Australia, this is something they have to manage, and that is exactly what I was doing. So I was working Friday, Saturday, Sunday as security, and then I was doing Mondays to Wednesdays working as a fitness trainer at my uni's gym. So that was doing it for me. And then a lot of the guys, like that these days, I can see a lot of the guys, they're working like really hard in terms of
Yep.
jobs and all those things. And this was a discussion that I had the other day with another guy. He's from Australia, and we were having this discussion. Pakistanis or like people who are coming in to study, they're actually working a lot
Yeah.
because they have to. Because most of these guys, they're working to afford for their uni fees and then their cost of living and everything. They're actually working a lot. And then if you were to compare that to a normal Australian citizen who's doing the
True.
exact same, going to uni, like they're paying about 80% less than what international
Yeah.
students pay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then if you were to compare, if these guys were on the same level, they'd be saving about, I think, like $60,000 to $80,000 a year very
Yeah.
easily if they
Yeah.
didn't have to pay as much
Wow.
as they are paying.
And many of these are like even funding families back home as well,
A
sending
lot, yes.
remittances.
Yeah, I do have a lot of guys who are working for me as well, in a lot of my service stations. So those like when you listen to their stories, like some of them, they've come from very do you know, like very far out areas in Pakistan. For example, I've got a guy, he's from Gujarat,
Okay.
and that guy, like he sends pretty much everything. Like he got two of his sisters married in Pakistan
Wow.
and then he's supporting his family, he's paying his uni fees, and then he's obviously his own cost of living as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're doing all of that, and really hardworking guys. Even during COVID, majority of the Australians, like, they stopped working. They were,
Mm.
because obviously they were getting government support and all those
Yeah.
things, but
Yeah.
these guys were not getting anything. So they were
Yeah.
still working, and
Mm.
yeah,
Mm.
like I think it's just like they adapt to that, that mode where they just know, like, they have to. These are the things that they have to do, and then they keep on doing it.
And speaking about these people, many of them struggle with the PR, how to get the residency in Australia. So how like did you get it, and how do you like for others? What do you see quite often?
So, for me, because I was in my bachelor's, I got my I applied for mine in 2016. A lot of the at that time it was you had to have a minimum of 60 points, because I applied for visa subclass 189.
Skill
So
based.
yeah, that's a skill based permanent residence. So that one, like, as long as you had 60 points or anything over, you were good to go. I'm pretty sure, because what I've heard recently, that mark's gone to about 80, 90 points now.
Yeah, yeah. And
Sometimes
even
even more.
people who have it, they
Yeah,
don't
they
get.
Yeah, because because the thing is, there's a big waiting list even after you submit your expression of interest and all those things. But back at that time, 0.9 was already one of the guaranteed ones. Like if you had anything over 60 points, you would get it. So I did my IELTS at the time. On ATH you would get like 20 points. So that's what I got from there. And then your degree obviously gives you, I think it was 15 or 20 points for your degree. And then my age was where I lost a few points because at the time I was 23 actually. Yeah, I was 23 at the time. So I lost a few points because of my age. So I had to do a test which was it's called NATI, which is which it's like a translation based test.
Community based,
Yeah. So I did that because that was before I gave my IELTS because I wasn't too sure if I was going to get it. But then eventually I did get it. And then I think I submitted my PR at 75 points in total. Okay. And then I got my, I applied, I think I went to Pakistan in end of 2015 after my degree, came back and then applied for my PR. So from the date I applied my PR, it took about 40 days to come.
Nice. And okay, moving forward.
Yeah.
Once you reach Australia, you're studying, you're doing these jobs, you graduate. How do you get your first job?
So are you talking about the first engineering job that I got?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing with my degree was that you had to finish 3 months of internship. That was the most hard phase throughout this time because internship, normally people get paid for it, right? Mm-hmm. But because it was compulsory for me to get my degree done, I had to get my internship finished. So I worked 3 months and I wasn't paid. So it was, so you were basically, I was working Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and it was not paid. But because you didn't you had no other option, right? So that is what that to me was the hardest one because you're basically spending Monday to Friday working for someone and you're not getting paid. You know, when you asked me that question about ambition, that was probably the first step of ambition where you're like, holy, minor language. So you're basically working for someone, you're getting most of the work done, you're not even getting paid for it. But eventually, that the place where I did my internship was when I finished my internship, I got my graduation done and everything. They offered me a role, and it was an assistant designs engineer role at a company called Comos at the time.
And how long did you do that for?
So that job I did for about a year. Okay. For 1 year I did that, and then I moved to another company, Jacobs Engineering, and that company moved later when I resigned. At that time they were going through that phase where they were being bought up by another company.
Okay.
But yeah, so about 2 years. I'd say about 2.5 years I've worked as an engineer.
And then you founded Burk.
Yes. So Burk, how I found it was I was working for this company, Jacobs, that I was telling you about. So we used to do, by that time I was into the plant. So I was into more design works, and then clients would come to us. Let's say if Shell was one of the biggest clients that the company had at the time. So they would give contracted out to different engineering companies for a service station or a project. So there was a lot that goes into a service station. There's actually a lot that goes into a service station, the whole process of building a service station. So my clients, who I used to deal with would come to us for underground tank design works, and then fuel line works and all those kind of things. So if the job would come to me, my company would, at the time, Jacobs would give me the client whole performer list that they had. They would give it to me, and then I'd go through with the client on the whole project, brief them every single thing about the project, and then do most of the budgeting and stuff, and then pass it on to the client. Yeah. That was when that year and a half working at Jacob was where I learned a lot about what goes in and out of a fuel station, right? And then towards at the end, when Jacob was getting bought out by a company called Wiley Parsons. So they bought them out, and at that time I was in. Obviously, you make contacts, and then relationships within the industry starts to grow. So that was when I met this guy from Viva Energy, Ron. His name is Ron. He's retired now. He came to us because Viva was building 3 sites at the moment, where I was assistant project manager for those sites. And then this guy I was dealing a lot with this guy. So he was their state retail manager.
Okay.
So his role was more about developing a site for Viva and then get it running. So he was more about like, how about you, like you've got all the experience because I think I had a discussion with him about, I'm thinking of investing some money and I've got some money coming in from Pakistan as well. So I'm thinking of investing it to the fuel business. Like what kind of opportunities do Shell or Viva Energy has? So he told me about this dealership network that Viva or Shell had at the time. So he told me about that very briefly, and then I asked him a lot of questions about how it works. So basically, how that program worked was that you buy a service station or you develop a service station, and then what Shell does is they'll give you the brand.
Okay.
But everything else you have to do yourself. That was where like you didn't have to pay them franchise fees or anything. You just had to pay them a brand fee on the fuel that you were buying off them.
Okay.
That was what I wanted to get in, because I heard at that time I had heard a lot of bad experiences with franchisee owners where like, they had to pay a lot and then they're not making enough. So I was like, if I'm going to go into the fuel business, I want to make money off fuel.
Yeah.
There's majority of the franchisees, they don't make money off fuel. They make most of their money from the shop. Whereas with me, I was like, if I want to make money off the shop, I would open a convenience store.
Yeah.
I open a fuel station. You don't need to make money off the fuel. So what he was telling me was the more suitable option for me at the time. So, 2019 was when bought this first service station in Alkmaar. I've still got it. I'll show you around. I'll turn around and most of my the posters in my office are from that service station.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was the first one that I built from pretty much scratch. Leased the area, got everything done, developed the whole thing, and then Shell obviously came in when the price boards and everything was going to go in. And 2019 July was when we opened that, and then it was pretty hectic at the time because there was just too much going on. And that was when I had a friend of mine, and she came in because she came in from a very strong retail background. So she'd worked with Caltex about 8 years before this. So yeah, she had a lot of experience into how the shops run and all this. Because see, with me, it was more about fuel and infrastructure and how to put it together. But then the actual business that happens inside the shop, like I had no clue how these chocolates and drinks, all those things. Like fuel, if in terms of fuel, like I knew everything about fuel, but this part I had no clue. That was when she came in, and then she knew a lot of people within the industry, helped me out a lot with that. So we pretty much worked together into setting that whole, the shop part of it, understanding the whole thing. And then after a year, we were facing this issue. So see, most of my growth and development is based on I would have a problem or I would have an issue, and then my resolution of that issue would be another step towards something in growth. So after a year, we had this issue because we were selling a lot of, like, our fuel-based customer base was really strong. So the volume that we were selling went really high. So the issue that came up was supply. So none of the transport companies would be able to cater us in a way where, let's say, if I need fuel delivered at my site every single day, none of transport companies would be able to do it, because we were doing about at that time we were doing about 1.2, 1.3 million liters a month.
Okay.
So, and one fuel tanker delivers about 40,000 liters.
Okay.
That would mean that pretty much a delivery every day.
Yeah.
So none of the fuel companies would be able to do it. So that was when I was like, let's forget about them. Let's buy a tanker of our own.
Yeah.
And I'll buy a tanker of my own, and then a truck of my own, and then start delivering fuel ourselves. So started doing that. And I bought a tanker, branded the whole tanker as Burk. This is where Burk came in. The fuel station.
Up to now, there was no name.
As of now, like till now, we were opened up and we were using the Shell brand. We were paying Shell fee as well, the brand fee.
Okay.
So when the tanker came in, it was branded Burk, and the tanker started going in. And when your tanker's actually on the road, a lot of people see you as a fuel company, because if it's a fuel tanker going up and on the road, people would look at the name and think about that. So that was when another guy came to us and asked us to deliver fuel for him. It was a farm about 2.5 hours away from Perth.
Okay.
Delivered fuel over there, and then when the tanker starts going back and forth over there was another guy who came to me and told me that he had this land that he wanted to sell, or he wanted to do something with it. So he went and bought that land. So at the time, because it was about 2.5, 3 hours away from Perth, so like, yeah, okay, no worries, we'll buy it. So I bought land, first one, and then redeveloped the whole service station again because of using the same experience that I had from my engineering days. So did the whole thing, like it was just a cycle. So you did the whole thing all again over there, set it up, redesigned the whole shop, redesigned the whole forecourt, pretty much redesigned everything for that, and then opened it. So now the same guy came back because he had seen it. So he came back and asked me, said he had 2 more lands that he wants to sell now. So took those 2 lands as well, did the exact same there. And this all was done within 14 months. So within 14 months, I opened 3 more fuel stations, and in total we had 4 fuel stations, and then the transport fleet went from 1 truck and tanker to about 3 because of obviously the demand. And at this stage, none of the banks were involved.
Okay.
At this stage, there were no banks involved. Banks only came in recently, about 2023. They came 2023 towards end of 2023 when they came in, or for the tankers.
Okay.
At that stage, I think that was the best aspect of the business, that we were going at a pace where like the banks were not really there.
Mm.
And then and then after, I think 2022, beginning of 2022 was when I got this guy, an agent, property agent, who came to me and then told me about another 7 sites that were he had on his portfolio.
Okay.
We started going towards them, and then they were like, it would be like Anam was working, Anam and kind of like together in the way where if she found something, she'd bring it across, and then if I found something, we'd sit together, discuss it. Okay, this is what we need to do. Let's see how we can do it. So pretty much plan everything. Don't spend too much. Like, stay in your budget, because a lot of the times what they do is, I think they fail is, they'll look at a project, right? And then let's say if the project costs about $3 million, they will put it in their heads that this is what it's going to cost, right? So they'll go to the banks and then take that $3 million. Whereas you don't really say, if you had, I'll put it in a small, in a good basic example, right? Like if you had $100 or 100 rupees or something, and then you knew that's what you've got, right?
Yeah.
You would make sure that you spend just that. You don't go over the $100.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you have a limit, or when you go, or when you've made up in your mind that you're gonna spend 3 million, you will spend up 3 million. You won't negotiate.
Yeah.
Or you won't try to cut or save money
Mm.
at that stage. Whereas with us, it was more about, this is gonna cost $3 million. How much can we save, right?
Okay.
So you don't overspend.
Yeah.
Even if you, let's say you squeezed it down to $2 million or $2.5 million, you don't use that, or you don't go and then like, okay, I've saved $500,000. I'm just gonna go spend it wherever. You don't spend it. You for the next project.
Yeah.
So
If I understand it correctly, so if you look at the growth, so first of all, you had those foundations, right?
yes,
Right. With your education, you had the relevant education. Then you had the relevant experience, right? And then you had the relevant network, right?
Yes.
And the right information. And after that, you one by one, where you saw an opportunity, seized it, right? And then from there onwards, I think it's operational efficiency and planning, financial planning and strategic planning in a way that help you grow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in this whole journey, I'm pretty sure there a lot of people would have played a role.
Yes.
So how would you, like, what type of help does one need to reach where you are? And what are the areas where you need help?
Okay. So I think there are a lot of, I think the people and connections do matter a lot, but I believe like they matter to an extent, because
Yeah.
you need to be able to have some faith in your own abilities, because I've seen a lot of people that they know they can do it, but then they're scared.
Yeah.
That's the problem is not their ability at the time. The problem is they don't have that confidence or faith in themselves. Like, let's say if I like there've been a lot of like instances where I've spent a lot of time and effort and money into a project, and a lot of people have told me otherwise, like, oh no, it's not going to work. But then if you start listening to everyone in that aspect, then it's not gonna work for you. Because every venture or every project that you take, there always be negatives onto that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you keep on thinking about the negatives, you're not gonna succeed. Like, you'll be too scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of the people who really helped me, this is where they helped me. Like, most of the people who were affiliated with me in the beginning, or even who are with me right now, we're not talking about the negatives a lot. Negatives, we obviously we note it down. We know where we need to work, or we know what the risks are, or we know the risks involved. But at the same time, you don't base your decision on those risks, because if you do that, you're not going to be able to do anything. So, like the guy who helped me in the beginning securing Elkmos, that guy now works for us as a development manager.
Oh,
right?
nice.
So he was the one who sold Elkmos, the first site, to me, like the land and stuff for the first site. So he now works for us.
Nice.
And these are the kind of people, and like you always have to this is what like I normally do, like you always have to keep your ears open,
Yeah.
and then take as much advice as you can. And then all you need to do is, when you go back home, you need to filter out the negatives about it and start looking at the positives, right? Because the more you focus onto the negatives, you're not gonna.
Yeah.
I'll give you a very, very good example. I heard somewhere. See, whenever you buy a car, again, I'm gonna give you a car example. Whenever you buy a car, see, the downside of it is it's gonna cost you money.
Yeah.
But you still buy it.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
you look at the positives about it, like, this is what it's going to give, or this is what it's going to do. You don't think about, at the time, you don't think about it's going to cost me in fuel, it's going to cost me, because that's a known fact.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times where I've seen a lot of people who, even in the industry, they'll get scared of competition. Like, if another fuel station opens, or if another guy comes in, they'll get scared. But the thing is, this was meant to happen anyways.
Yeah.
Like, how can you think that, like, you'll be stupid to think that you're the only person who's going to stay there. Obviously, there's going to be another person coming in.
Yeah.
You just need to be mentally prepared for it. So if you just, knowing your risks is good, but getting scared of them is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Never going to help you. It's not going to help anyone. So this is what I've, like, anyone's asked me about, like, but what about this risk or that risk? This is what I've told him. Like, let's talk about the risks after. Let's focus more on what we can gain from it.
And I've seen it myself as well, where people, when they plan projects, they have funding, they don't have any issues. It's just that the leap of faith that they need to take, they just don't take it. Because when you're looking at the things that could go wrong, and then if mindset is framed that way, then you're only looking at what could go wrong, and you would never start, right?
Yeah.
And that brings you to taking risks. Yeah, and the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. We all know that.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, yeah. No, go on.
Please.
So, see, the thing is, I'm not saying that you just blindly go and take whatever risk. A blind risk, I'm not in favor of, because you just do your own research work, do your own. If you're confident on, or if you've done it thoroughly, you'll know you'll do it, right?
Yeah.
Then, even after then, if you base your decision off the risk involved, that's not good, I think.
Yeah.
That's where people really need to work on, because they'll do all their research. Because I know a lot of people who, like, in different industries and different businesses, what they're doing is they're just talking.
Yeah.
They'll talk about a project. They'll keep on talking. They'll do a lot of research. Like, they'll spend 6 months of research. I don't think you need to spend 6 months of research. If you spend 2 good weeks of research on a single project, I think that's more than enough.
Yeah.
Because the more you go deep into those 6 months, all you're basically doing is, you've done your research in the first 2 weeks, and after that, you just be thinking about what if it goes wrong? What if it goes wrong?
Yeah. And you see it a lot.
Yeah,
Many people, it's very common, and I think correct me if I'm wrong. If there are too many decision makers in a team, then it becomes difficult as well, right? I
very true.
and when you are like a few or ideally one person, that obviously everybody needs guidance, advice, consultants, all of that. But then somebody has to take that leap of faith and just go ahead rather than just thinking about it a lot and then wasting a lot of time and resources. And then uh, over time, what I've seen in many cases, that business idea becomes irrelevant in the market.
Ex-
Market moves forward, right?
Correct. Correct. No, it's more, yeah, yeah, you just said what I was about to say. See, when you go to a shop, you would have noticed this when you go buying or when you go for shopping or anything, you would notice the more shops you go to, right, the more hard it becomes to make a decision, right?
Uh,
And 99% of the times, the first shop that you went to, you'll come back to that shop and and it happens so much.
because in your subconsciousness, you in your subconscious you were ready, but
Yeah,
that doubt took you to the other shops, and
exactly. Yeah.
that wasted a lot of your time and energy, right?
Yeah, like it wasted time, energy, and whereas you could have just done the same thing, like
Yeah,
straight up.
before.
And women are actually the worst when it comes to that. I'm telling you, going like my mom was here 2 months ago, and I don't like going shopping with her. Seriously, they go. This is what they love. They'll start from one shop and then they'll keep on going. Spend about 4 or 5 hours. They'll end up buying from the first shop, and
It's typical. It's
yeah,
typical
it's
of European women.
yeah,
Okay, let's move forward a bit. So we discussed the business growth and obviously risk as well. And before we dive into the next topic, very quickly, if you could answer one thing, what was the biggest risk that you had to take throughout this, if there was any?
Yeah, so the biggest risk was actually bringing and coming in my own brand. That
Okay.
was the biggest risk because at that time, I'd only worked on using, or all the success and everything was using a brand. But at the time, I thought, or I had this belief that it's not really the brand, it's the way I'm pricing my fuel. And that was, Shell actually was very persistent and very pushy towards renewing the contract, the supply agreement and the brand agreement. They were pushing me a lot at that time. And that was a decision where I had to decide, like, do I want to keep on using Shell or do I want to create something else? And yeah, that was the hardest decision at the time because a lot of the people, like 99% of the people were against it.
Okay.
Because they said if you're gonna bring your own brand, you will lose your customer base instantly. Whereas I was like, because I was a little bit stubborn at the time, probably a lot stubborn, because I thought like, no, these people are not making sense because I know if I drop the fuel prices or if I price my fuel right, I'll still have the same customer base. And then yeah, it worked for me and it turned out true. Because brand was more, it was more about, and I tell this to everyone now because obviously it worked, that the brand that's there is a brand, is just the name. The actual fuel price is what's going to bring your customer in.
Yeah.
That's what I did and went with the brand, rebranded the whole thing. And see, with these big oil companies, the thing is, they're very nice to you when you're starting.
Yeah.
When you are not renewing or when you're not agreeing with them, they get nasty and they get dirty at stage. And that was a hard phase at the time where like the whole process was a little bit lengthy. I had to get lawyers involved at the time. That was a little bit,
Shaky for the
yeah,
business.
that was actually the first time I'd actually gone to a courtroom as well.
Okay.
Because because see, the thing is, renewing the contract, to renew a contract, the major oil companies, they'll push the guy or they'll push you a lot because they know what's going to happen if it doesn't get renewed. You're either going to go to the competitor or you bring your own brand.
Yeah.
So both of these options are not going to work.
Yeah.
So that's where that was the hardest one. Spent about 3 months into it, and yeah. Yeah. So this was early 2023.
So, and I think as an entrepreneur, you build that resilience because of these moments, right?
Yes.
Because if every day is a bright day, then you don't really,
Let me tell you, every day is not a bright day. It's what you have to train your mind
yeah,
to when you're in that
yeah,
way. Because see, every day you're gonna get something weird or something new. I've woken up to calls where someone actually drove a car inside the shop. Yeah, I've woken up to those days. I've woken up to those days where someone, yeah, there was this lady. She drove through the window, glass doors, and then she was into the shop with a
was,
car. So
was
yeah,
anybody was
no,
anybody hurt?
the police said that she had some sort of seizure or something. But
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, you wake up to these calls, and then sometimes you'll wake up to a call where someone's just driven off while the hose is still in the car, and they've driven off and then taken the whole Bowser with them. So you wake up to really weird ones.
Yeah.
But again, like it's an end of the day, like in the beginning, I used to stress about all of these things, but then you learn, like you
Yeah.
train yourself in a way that this is what it's about. Like these things are always going to happen. So
Yeah.
you just have
Yeah.
to work onto the solution rather than stressing about it.
Yeah. And yeah, again, like I talk to a lot of professionals, and with like this is the common thing. You have to be very resilient, otherwise it's going to hurt you in a way that if you're being emotional about it and thinking way too much about it, then you just cannot survive in this competitive market or
Oh yeah.
any business market, right?
See, when you're in, so this is one of the downsides of being into the entrepreneurship or into the business world is you have to set aside your emotions at a lot of places, and even your like a lot of the times you have to step on your ego too, because this is what my lawyer told me one time. She said, "Ego is a good thing to have, but it's a bloody expensive thing." Is which is so true, because you can't make decisions based on that. See, today, whoever's your competitor today might be your friend a month after or a year.
Yeah.
And like you'll end up dealing with them. And I have done that. Like there's another fuel company, and I've dealt with them. They compete with me on a daily basis, but I bought their fuel stations, turned them around, renovated them, and made them our own fuel stations. So see these things, like when you're in that domain, like you don't have to compete like you don't have to compete at an emotional level with these people, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
whoever's your competitor, like I've never had any bad, like I've never gone personally bad about a competitor, or never had like bad faith about a competitor. But obviously when you're in that competition, you have a sort of competition. Okay, he's doing this, I'm gonna do this. No?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And let's move forward because I want to cover a few more things in the time that we have left. Many young men listening to this are where you were a few years ago. Okay, they're all young at that stage, and many people, for instance, not just in Australia but in other countries that then not their home countries, then they're working for a better life. Let's talk about how you can create your own success here. So if we talk about advices, so a lot of Pakistanis come to Australia, work like security jobs, odd jobs, and the problem is they never get out. Like it's okay to survive, to use that as to pass that time to learn and grow, but many people just don't get out. So what's your advice for someone feeling stuck in that phase?
So see, again, it's more about like you answered the question in a way, because majority of the people, they start looking at money as the ultimate goal, right? Because if you're gonna do that, there are ways that you can make money, but the thing is, it'll be a cycle. Like you're not growing, you're in that cycle and you're doing it over and over again. So for instance, if it's like even like Uber drivers, or if some, because a lot of the guys, because when I came in there was no Uber. A lot of the guys right now, they're working, let's say, as an Uber driver. I know they'll make a lot of money, right? They'll make a lot of money, but if you're just stuck in that cycle of where your end result or your goal or your money is the only thing that motivates you, then you will end up keep on doing it. because you basically train your mind into this is only because you've trained your mind into thinking this is the only thing that's going to make me money, right?
Yeah.
Whereas what it's doing is you're basically forgetting or you're closing your vision into a way where you're not even looking at options. Because if you're not looking at options, how are you going to get them? Opportunities are always there. It's about like if you need to keep your eyes open, you need to make your vision a little bit wider so you can see around as well. You can see out of it. A lot of the people who where they go wrong is first it's about like they're not really going out and socializing. A lot of the Pakistanis I've seen, what they're doing is they're socializing within the community, right? So you're not really putting yourself out there to see.
I think one of the reasons that this is an actual problem, a very big one. A lot of the people assume that they'd have to, what do you say, go out of their ways and values, like drink to meet other people. Is that true or not?
No, so see, in terms of like when it comes to drinking, no one's really forcing you to drink. You can go out there. If people are drinking, you can have a non-alcoholic drink with them.
Yeah.
Like I've gone to a lot of dinners where like no one even knew I don't drink. Like they don't even know because they don't care. Like no one really cares about what you are drinking or what you're not drinking. If you're not drinking, you're not drinking. So that should not affect it. But the only thing is, so drinking, what people think is to hang out with the local community, you have to drink. No, you don't really have to drink. Drinking is just their excuse to get together.
Yeah.
It's an excuse. It's not a compulsory thing. So if you get together with them, you can drink whatever. Like no one's telling you to drink a specific, like it's like, let's say I want to hang out with you and then 3 guys are drinking milk. And for me to hang out with you, I have to drink milk. No, it's not.
And that's a common misconception. It sounds it sounds stupid. I'll tell you why. Because you and I, we have a network of people, Western people, who we know how they think. But because these people don't have that exposure in a certain way, because they've limited themselves in their own community, they just have many misconceptions, and this is one of them, right?
A lot of the times, what happens with Pakistani communities is that they see when they're in Pakistan, no one really cares about religion as they do when they're out of Pakistan. This is another reason because see, when we were in school, I don't think we've had a lot of conversations. I don't think we've had a conversation over religion or a religious argument. I'm not saying they're bad arguments or discussions. Like but you have to separate them. You can't mix them together because if you're mixing them together, then you have that judgmental kind of personality where you hate the person, right?
Yeah.
So that's sorry.
Please.
Yes, that's where they're blocking. They're blocking people. I've worked with a lot of Jews. So, do I believe in what they believe? No, I don't.
Yeah.
Do I work with them? Yes, I do. Because just today I can't judge them because of their religion.
Yeah. So and you can easily coexist with the people, and especially in working environments and where you're not asked to go into a personal relationship like that for your own growth. To be, if you're in a society, let's say Australia, this society has welcomed you, and then you're not asked to give up your values, but be open enough to accept those. You don't have to do those things. You just have to accept those things, right?
Exactly.
Coexist with them, right?
Yeah. So
and please.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times, I think it's more like you just said that yourself as well. Like a lot of the times where if someone's got a certain value or something, just show some respect. Because if you're going to show respect to them, these people will show respect to you as well.
Yeah.
That's where you just neutralize that aspect of the discussion and then you move forward from it.
Yeah. Okay, let's switch things up and have some fun because it's been a very serious segment so far. So let's come to something, man. You're big on fitness, right? How does staying fit help you in business and life?
It gives you discipline. It gives you a lot of discipline, and it gives you I think mostly it's about taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
All of this would mean nothing if you're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
So, and then how it helps you in life is it brings discipline into your life. There are things like, do I like training or working out at the gym? I don't actually like working out at the gym. But it's just that something that you train yourself into, now this is something that I have to do.
Yeah.
It's like it becomes more of a core. When you're young, like when you're in that phase, it's more about like, yeah, I want to go to the gym, I want to get big or something. But then when you're there, it's more about like, okay, now if I don't do it, then I start feeling a little bit sick.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's where you're like, no, I need to take care of myself. Because another day, if you're not taking care of yourself, or if you're not doing that, you're basically disrespecting yourself. And if you're
Yeah.
disrespecting yourself, no one else is gonna give you that respect.
And that's a beautiful way of looking at it. And I think a lot of us are guilty of not respecting ourselves, and that's
Yes.
why we I think maybe that's part of why some of us we don't make it big.
Yeah, you can say. I think it's about the mindset. Like when you're in that mindset, things start like a lot of the things will start falling in place themselves. Like you'll start feeling like a lot of the things are working for you because of very small things in life, which a lot of people like they'll ignore them. But if you start paying attention towards those things, it'll work for you.
Yeah. And okay, let's talk about your car collection,
Okay.
because I've seen some of them, and they're quite cool. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so I've always had a lot of interest in cars. I mean, I don't spend on suits and those expensive stuff, but cars I do spend a lot. Like this is seriously, this is exactly what I wear every day to work. And this is the best thing I like about working for yourself, is because you don't have to wear a suit.
Yeah.
I was tired when I was working as an engineer. I was tired of it. But cars, I think the first one I bought was pretty straightforward. It was a Camaro, a Chevrolet Camaro. I still have that car.
Okay.
So that was the first one that I bought. That was pretty much very early, 6 months after I had the first sight.
Okay.
And my dad was not happy at the time. Getting like, no, it's too early or this and that. But then I was like, what's the whole point? But I think you need to find something to motivate you in a way. Yeah, I found that in cars and those kind of things. So, which is good. At least my mom doesn't have to worry about me doing drugs or anything. So,
And it's good to have passion. It's good to have such passion, and
yeah.
it is good for your focus as well, right?
Yes. And then it's something that you see, and then it kind of like it's more about like reflecting on what you've achieved in a way.
Yeah.
Which one did you say? Which
Yeah. Yeah. And it like I think again it becomes very subjective for every individual, but then you can always like this helps. Having such a mindset always helps, right?
Correct. Yeah. So you have to find something that you like. It doesn't always have to be. It doesn't have to really have to be a car or anything. If you like watches, for example, I don't think like people are like, oh, you're wasting money on watches. But no, the person's not wasting money on watches. He wants to get something, keep him motivated.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what it is. Like right now, trucks motivate me a lot because I've obviously done the fuel part of it. So every time I buy a new tanker or a truck, it motivates me. Like, okay, this is another one, because see, it means a lot to me. Like I'm getting more customers, so that is why I have to buy one. So and it becomes more like an accomplishment at the time.
Yeah. And when you see these milestones that you achieve, it's another motivation that like really grows onto you, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And okay, let's talk about. We'll just quickly wrap up. We've talked about how you've like in a very short time you've made a very good move in a way, career-wise, becoming an entrepreneur, growing your business. What does the future vision look like? What do you like? I wouldn't say where do you see yourself in 5 years, because that's a typical job interview question.
Story after this. Where I see myself right now, I have a set number of sites that I want to open probably in the next 5 to 10 years. I do want to get past the 200, 300 mark.
Okay.
And in terms of fuel itself, I am actually working on it like from now, but it will take a little bit longer. I'm thinking of making a fuel import terminal.
Okay.
So that's where like I can import directly from overseas, like Singapore
Beautiful.
from over there, and then at a larger scale.
Beautiful.
So
And then
I
your
think
distribution can come into play as well.
I'll be more of a supplier at the time.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
that's where what I'm thinking of. The funny story I wanted to tell you was there was this one time I heard this from a guy. He's one of my competitors. He's a Pakistani guy. He has about 3 or 4 franchises, 7-Eleven franchises. I spoke to him and he was interviewing this guy for a job, right?
Okay.
So the guy is 75.
Okay.
And he asked that question. He was like, "Where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?" In my grave, mate.
Makes sense. I think that's a different conversation. I'd love to do a follow-up podcast again sometime because there's so much we're learning from you, and I want to continue. But I want to be respectful of your time as well and our audience's time as well.
Anytime you need me to, let me know, and yeah, we'll definitely plan.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Umar, before we wrap up, just one last question.
Yes.
If you could give one piece of advice to young Pakistani anywhere in the world, and then one advice specifically for those in Australia who are struggling to make it big.
So I'll just give fun for anyone. Whenever you feel as if you're failing, it's just the process. Have faith in your process and don't think of it as an end. It keeps on going. It doesn't end. These things are always going to be there. That's the only advice I've got.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Umar. This has been an amazing conversation, and your story, it's very inspiring. How I thought about you was usually I don't use Facebook that often. I've seen your posts sometimes. You were always on my mind when I was doing this, and then I'm very thankful that you for this, and speaking to you has been very inspiring. And I think not just for the audience and my own self as well, because there are so many misconceptions. And when you see people like you, you might not know this, when we people see somebody among us successful and breaking those barriers, you're a role model to many coming behind you, right?
Thanks.
So thank you so much for
just have faith in yourself again, like I said before, and you'll be like, maybe a year later I'll probably be doing your podcast.
Inshallah. I hope by the time we do our next episode, you achieve that vision you talked about. Inshallah. Thank you so much once again, and wish you a very great rest of the evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Ali. Thanks.
To our audience, if you're feeling stuck in a survival job or don't know how to take the next step, let this episode be a wake-up call for you. And if you found value in this episode, please subscribe to Perfecto Casa channel and leave a comment and let us know how you feel about the different topics discussed and what topics would you like to see next and what type of guests would you like to listen to next. So until next time, thank you so much and take care.